Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and I just wanted to show you in this project that we worked on over the weekend who did all the work and who stood around and watched, just so you'll know. Well, anyway, I want to thank you for watching, and I'm going to tell a story to keep this from getting too boring. But this past weekend, my son decided to do the framing on the little building he's putting together as an extension on his shop. And that's where my wife and I will have some storage and also a place to work. If you haven't been following my channel, my son invited us to move out and sell our house and move out to his place and live in a fifth wheel. And we're progressing along with that. And so if you haven't been following, I'll put some links to some other videos. So this particular weekend, he decided to do the framing for the little addition to his shop. Looks to me like he's trying to make a ladder there or something. But anyway, he wanted to get it done so that the sooner we get this done, the sooner we can move out there. So over the weekend, he intended to do the framing for the little addition. So he's getting ready there, and while he's getting ready there, I might as well start my story because this just watching somebody do framing could be boring to some people. So this story is about my having a funeral in my airplane, in my Cessna 170. So I know it sounds crazy, but years ago, and this was quite a few years ago, we were going to a fairly large church, and I worked there at the radio station, and I had my plane, and everybody knew I loved to fly. Well, there was this family, a man and a wife and two little girls, and the man was quite a bit older than the wife, and I can't remember details, but anyway, he became ill and he passed away. And so one of the things that he had always wanted was to have his ashes spread out over an area where I think it was where he grew up or something like that. Now, where we were at that time was Southeast Washington, and Southeast Washington is quite a bit like Arizona in a lot of ways. It's sagebrush and just open country, and so he wanted his ashes to be spread over this particular area. So everybody knew I loved to fly, so they said, Mr. Kent, can you do a funeral from your airplane and spread some ashes? And of course I said, well, I'll give it my best shot. Anyway, so I was excited to help out, really. And it's been so long ago now that I think we can laugh about it. Some funerals are sad. I want my funeral not to be sad. And this is, as you can see, the ladder he was making, that wasn't a ladder. That was what he's supporting there horizontally across the top. He's going to bring the roof down from the main roof and go across this little addition and then drop on down over the construction that he's working on now. So that's what those were for. They weren't ladders. So now let's see, where was I? Okay, so everybody knew I loved to fly, and so they said, you want to conduct a funeral, which meant to take his wife and his two little girls and take them out and spread this man's ashes out over this area that he wanted them spread over. And of course, I was very willing to do that. So what you can't do is you can't just throw them out the door. you have to spread them out over a long area. You notice by 11 o'clock, he had all those long boards spread across that construction area up that he put up there. And now he's starting on the wall, which is going to go up against the shop. So when you consider he started at 8 and it's already 11, he moves pretty fast if you watch very closely. Well, so I had to figure out some way. If you know what a venturi is something that when there's airflow, or even water, but when there's an airflow, it causes a suction, and it pulls whatever it's connected to, it pulls it. And that's how carburetors work on the old car. Oh, there comes the boss. She's going to check up on him, make sure he's doing it right. And apparently, he's doing it right. So anyway, so this venturi, I needed to put something that you could put out the window, that as the plane flew along at 100 miles an hour, the passing air would draw through a little tube that I stuck out the window, and I put duct tape and held it all out there, and so it would cause a suction on it was about a 1-inch plastic tube, and brought it into the cockpit. And then the idea was to put it into the container. And by the way, the container was a cardboard box, maybe a foot long, and so. And now they're going to raise the wall. It's 11:22 on Saturday, and he's got the first wall made. So they're going to raise the wall. So anyway, back to the story. So I at that time, believe it or not, I was heating my house with wood in an old potbelly stove. Sounds crazy, but that's how I do things. So I gathered up a bunch of ashes and had a friend go with me in my plane. Here they go. They're going to raise it up. This is kind of a ceremonial thing. The first wall of all the walls. The first wall of the Mavic Mini's future home is up. And of course, he caught it on the umbrella, and that broke the rib. But as you will see, my son he can fix anything. And so he fixed that. I've seen people throw away their umbrellas because they broke one of those, but not my son. So anyway, they've got the wall up now. So I set this up, and I took a friend up with me, and I took a bunch of ashes from my stove and put them in a bag, and we went up, and when we got up to where we weren't over a bunch of houses and stuff, well then he stuck the tube down in the bag, and sure enough, that venturi that I designed, it just drew all the ashes out of the bag and out the window, and it seemed to work pretty good. So I was all set, and I knew I could do the funeral for it. And the way it was going to work was we would take one of the pastors. That church had 3 or 4 pastors. It was a fairly large church. One of the pastors would ride in the passenger seat up front in the plane, and the lady would sit in the back. And it's legal to hold a small child on your lap in a plane. Believe it or not, the FAA allows that. And so she was going to sit in the back and hold one on her lap, and the other one was going to sit next to her with the seatbelt. And look at here, already we're ready to raise the second wall. And this is getting later in the morning. On Saturday, you'll notice that the umbrella is fixed now, and I'm so proud of my boy. As you know, and if you haven't noticed, he does all the work. Anyway, so there's the second wall being raised up and put into place. So that was the plan. We were going to take off, fly out to the area where he wanted his ashes spread. And so I had the Venturi fixed. I had everything all planned out the way it should go. So on the day that the funeral was, the pastor was dressed in his suit and tie, and the lady was just like you would go to a funeral, to her husband's funeral. She was all dressed up nice, and the little girls were all dressed up nice. And so and by the way, my plane, my Cessna 170, was a tail dragger. So it was a little bit difficult to get in because when you're on the ground, the back of the tail dragger is low to the ground. So anyway, in their nice dresses and everything, they got settled in the back. And then the pastor had the box with the ashes in it, and so he crawled in. He sat up front, and I showed him how the tube was going to work, and closed this door and made sure the Venturi was still taped on like it was supposed to be with all the duct tape, and we were ready to go. And so it was a beautiful day, and we took off, and the little girls had never been up in an airplane, so they were pretty excited about that. And they were preschool, by the way. I don't remember if I said that, but they were just young little girls. So here's at the end of the day, Saturday, it was 101 degrees, and so everybody decided that they would go swimming and finish on Sunday. So here we are, Sunday morning, and it's 8:28 a.m., and my son is working alone at this point in time, which he did most of Saturday, except when it came to raising the wall. And he likes working alone, and he works fast, and if you haven't noticed. And so it's early Sunday morning, and he's at it again. So anyway, the little girls, like I said, they were preschool, and they were pretty excited. And of course, the lady was, I don't know if she'd ever flown in a plane or not. I can't remember if I asked her about that or not. But anyway, so she was quite content because she was doing what she knew her husband wanted to do. And so, and then the pastor, of course, I think he had taken flight lessons, and so he knew about planes, and it was like, quote, end quote, no big deal. He was sitting up there with the box of ashes on his lap, and I think we prayed, and like it was the beginning of a funeral, and then we took off. And she had already explained, or to the pastor, and he explained to me, I can't remember, too many details to remember. So we knew exactly where we needed to fly in order to spread the ashes. So off we went and headed in that direction. And what it was an area right near where the Snake River comes into the Columbia River. And so looky there. He's already got that next wall up, and he's got it got all fastened up. I think he raised that one himself. I wasn't out looking. It was 100. It was really hot these days that we did this. We did this the last couple of days of June in 2020, and so the temperature outside got up to 100 or more every day out in this area of Arizona. So anyway, he's got that wall up, and of course he's got Grandma. She's given her a job to help out a little bit, so she didn't have to climb the ladder like I did. She just goes along and sweeps, and he's got some lines drawn on the concrete there. And the reason you have to sweep all this is because here in Arizona it's dusty in the summertime, and that is clay. Everything is clay, and it's just always, we get a lot of blowing dust and so forth. So he had lines drawn on the concrete and where things should go, and so Grandma, she's hoping to tell him how to do it, of course, as you can see, and then also to to get everything swept up. Well, anyway, so we got out to the area where he wanted his, oh yeah, by the way, we had to take a run to get some lumber, so we were gone. My wife and I went with our pickup, our Cadillac pickup, and picked up 25 10-foot 2x6s so they could continue working. So anyway, we got out to the area where the man wanted his ashes spread, and the pastor opened up the box, and I lowered down to about 500 feet above the ground, and so we just started circling in that area, very gentle circle. And so as we were flying around, he opened up the cardboard box, which was sealed, and then there was the plastic bag inside with the human ashes. And I looked down at that bag, and do you know, human ashes don't look anything like ashes from wood. This man's ashes were like little BBs. Oh, by the way, there was a lot of wind that day, and so the bag was full of a bunch of different sized white BBs. And so anyway, he opened up the bag, the plastic bag, and he placed the 1-inch diameter plastic tube down into the bag, and nothing happened. The ashes were too heavy. They weren't like wood, and so they weren't being drawn up into the tube. And so he shook them around a little bit, and he raised the tube up a little higher. The box, that is, he raised the box up a little higher, and that didn't help. And he shook it around while he was holding it up higher, and that didn't help. In the meantime, the lady's in the back. We're having a funeral, remember? And the lady's in the back, and she's waiting to see the ashes go out the window, because she could see out her window in the back. Oh, by the way, Ron, Tara, Kayla, Bruce, Kat, and Anna raised the final wall. So they're standing around there getting ready for me to take off. And so I take the drone off, and this is celebration time again because it's the final wall. And they started Saturday, and this is in the afternoon on Sunday. And here we go. Everybody's going to raise the wall. Celebration time. The fourth wall is up, and that's Sunday at 12 noon. Final wall of Minnie's future home goes up. So the structure was pretty much had all four walls up, and then of course he had to go around and square up everything. So back to the story. So the pastor was getting a little frustrated, and the lady in the back was just patiently waiting. And nothing was happening. And so finally, the pastor picked up the box and tried scooping, holding it up above him, and tried scooping the ashes with the end of the plastic tube in the bag, like you would use a spoon to scoop them out. And he held it up high enough that they started rolling down the tube and out the window. And so for quite a while, as we circled and circled and circled, he worked his best to be able to get all of the ashes out the window. But as it turned out, because he was tipping the bag up and trying to get everything to run down into the plastic tube, he ended up with a whole bunch of human ashes in his lap. I know, it's funny. He was doing his best, and so this man's ashes ended up in his lap and on the floor and in the seat. And so the pastor then, once he pretty much had the bag empty, he said another prayer, and we turned around and we headed home, and we landed. And when we landed, I decided, well, I better get those ashes out of here, and I tried my best to get as many as I could, but they had fallen down in the cracks. There's a metal floor with inspection plates, and they had fallen down in there, and so I didn't get them all. Eventually, I sold my plane to my oldest son, And he flew that man's ashes everywhere he went. And then he sold it to somebody else in another part of the country. And they're still flying that plane. And that man is going for airplane ride after airplane ride after airplane ride because we couldn't get his ashes all out the window. And to this day, if somebody's flying that plane, he's up flying around with the guy that's in the plane. And the guy that's in the plane probably doesn't realize there's somebody else there. Anyway, that's my story for this time. These guys, by the way, that Ron is a good friend and a good helper. And he blessed my son because he helped all day long on Sunday. And so anyway, I want to thank you for watching this video and putting up with me. And God bless.